Okay, today we'll be talking about the government intervention in business and what it's about. And hopefully, you come to an understanding on why a government institution should or should not intervene in business practices. So just a quick review of a free market. In previous lectures, we've established that free markets are a market system where prices for goods and services are determined between firms and consumers. So in a free market, it's only the firms and consumers deciding the price for goods and services. It has a lack of interference from the government, which is why we call it a free market. And the rationale of the free market is that buyers and sellers naturally balance out price. So if you would remember your economics lesson, okay, when you have buyers and sellers only, the supply and demand of an item determines the price that it would sell. So for quick recall, okay, try to remember if the demand is high but the supply is low, prices naturally go up. But if the supply is high and the demand is low, prices go down. So in a free market, it relies on that basic economic theory. And the rationale for having a free market is because the government is not capable of making fair business decisions without having vested interest. Okay, vested interest meaning that they're not particularly involved in making the business decisions themselves. And for businessmen, for those that believe in the free market, um, they believe that a government can't make fair decisions because of this. So, yeah, because of issues of corruption, yeah, so regulators can become corrupt and manipulate the system, corruption. Um, businesses have a prefer a free some businessmen prefer a free market rather than having government intervene when they can be corrupt or they can manipulate the system for their own personal advantages, which is not always in the best interest of the business itself. There are controls and limitations with regards to the free market. So the free market, they argue that the limitations imposed is harmful to entrepreneurship. So for example, if there's a lot of control, it leads to less innovation. We see this with medicine or anything that has to do with research and development, where a lot of government red tape, meaning the paperwork they have to do, the safety that they have to prove, often lead to a slowdown into how they can develop their product. So take it from our example in this pandemic, where when they remove the government limitation in terms of the development of the COVID vaccine, it led to a faster development for a lot of the companies because they didn't have to go through a lot of government red tape, or they didn't have to file for a lot of approvals. Rush rushed the processes that often made it very taxing on the business to innovate on a product. So it isn't just the case for pharmaceuticals or medical devices, but it happens even in food products, technology, where a lot of control leads to less innovation. And typically, businessmen believe that the controlling body does not know the context of the business. So, for example, when your government is led by very old people, okay, those who don't understand technology, for example, when they're presented with things like cryptocurrency or yung mga cryptocurrency games, they often have a hard time understanding the business itself, since this is not something they're familiar with. And in a day and age where there are a lot of innovations happening, okay, sometimes the controlling body is not as informed on the context of the business. And the businesses believe that they will not be able to give its best service to customers when the government gets involved. Again, because of the control and limitations set by the government. Okay, so going back, in Adam Smith's theory of the invisible hand, leave markets alone and the price will fix itself. So interaction between business parties will ensure that adjustments will naturally keep price fair and balanced. So for example, if the demand is low, okay, but the supply is high, naturally businesses will lower the price to sell more. And in the same way, when there's a high demand for a certain product, they know that businesses can increase the price for buyer because of the lack of supply. So this is what happens, or what Adam Smith's theory is with regards to a free market. But in the reality of things, the firm often garners more of an advantage over the buyers. Because as we've said before, buyers will always have less information than the sellers. Okay? So meaning you as a customer, you do not know the complete picture of what is happening behind the scenes of a business. So for example, if you're buying a cell phone, you don't know if they're using high quality materials. Okay, so for a lot of other things, it could often lead to unsafe products. Okay, for example, things that are needed for medical use, or let's say yung mga gamit ng baby, like a baby bottle. Okay, are they using plastic that's safe for a baby? Okay, or for example, yung mga gadgets natin, are they using high quality batteries that will not cause it to catch on fire? Okay, for example. And sellers will find ways to gain more profits if there's no governing body set upon them. So ayan, so they can sometimes cut corners where it matters the most. So for some, it could be in cars, they could cut corners in the airbags they use, the tires they use, the brakes, which can lead to deadly accidents. And so, for example, if the quality assurance was underfunded, you would have products that can cause accidents, which endangers the buyer. And this encourages the emergence of monopolies when big businesses have free reign. Okay, so for example, let's say a giant business like SM decides to enter the market of pandesal. So your small pandesal businesses, they can only lower their price to a certain point. But let's say SM, who has millions and billions of funding, they can lower their price up to, for example, maimigay na lang sila ng pandesal. So hindi ka nabibili sa local markets mo, which can destroy their businesses. Yan. And without the control of the government, this can happen. And it's actually illegal here in the country for some businesses to do that. So when you talk about government intervention, what about it? Okay. So government intervention is when your government sets standards for operations to establish what is fair. So for example, the Philippine government can pass a resolution dictating that Meralco, monopoly, return extra fees charged to consumers. It's because Meralco is governed by the our Philippine government. So they can set certain standards of operations. So for example, they can set that, okay, phone manufacturers must follow this set of standards so that their phones are safe. And the government must enact laws and regulations to safeguard the interest of the people. So for example, for food manufacturers, they can set a list of requirements that food manufacturers must adhere to ensure the safety of their product. And so that could be the ingredients they use, okay, the amount of sugar, salt in a certain product, and other regulations to safeguard the interest of everyone buying the product. Yeah. And while businesses are naturally oriented to profit, when you start a business, okay, you want to profit. Okay, wala naman nagsisimula ng business so that they don't profit at all or puro loss lang. So businesses are naturally oriented, or most businesses are naturally oriented to profit. Okay? So, and because of this, it's prone to abuse and manipulation. And we have thousands of examples from TV shows, movies, okay, even real life, of businesses abusing the system, okay, cutting corners, okay, and manipulating whatever they can to profit more. And the role of the government is to ensure that firms do not violate the rights of the people. Okay, so it ensures that these businesses, how they operate, do not violate the human rights or the rights that you have as consumers and as people. And so that's the involvement of the state. And okay, the benefits of government intervention, especially if it's properly implemented, so meaning, okay, the absence of corruption, the absence of um, these red tapes that are restrictive, okay, firms can operate in a safe and positive environment. Okay, government intervention can actually help small businesses, for example, operate in safe and positive environments. Okay, buyers are given freedom of choice, protected by laws and policies dictated by the government. For us, we're able to practice our freedom of buying products more, choosing the products that we want to buy, knowing that um, there are government laws that set standards that protect us from ill practices of businesses. So, for example, low quality products, unsafe products, we're protected by the law from these types of products, and we're able to choose a little bit more freely because we don't have to worry about our safety or the products that we have to buy. And businesses can grow naturally in a competitive environment to promote the best quality products. So the government can actually help businesses be more competitive. So they can help small businesses compete with international businesses. Okay, local products can actually grow into something that we can export. So government intervention is actually very important to have a naturally competitive environment. So for example, if the government was running well, we would have things like Uber versus Grab. Okay, so where the consumer is naturally the winner because in a competitive environment, you only get the best quality or the best price products. Now, there are different types of forms of government intervention. Right? The first one is the regulation of the market. Okay, so in this form of government intervention, the government sets policies and limits what firms can do. So they try to protect the rights of consumers and other sellers from abuse from other firms. So for example, when you're selling food, you have to pass healthy, safe inspections to be able to operate. So they have a list of rules, regulations. So for example, if you're going to open up a restaurant, they sometimes have rules where, okay, for this size of restaurant, kailangan you need 2 fire extinguishers. Okay? For this size of establishment, kailangan may fire exit ka. Okay, ito dapat yung itsura ng lugar mo. The walls should be made of this. The kitchen should have an exhaust. So, the government can set policies on what the firms should do. Okay, so for example, phone manufacturers, they have to follow a certain set of standards and pass a certain set of standards before they can sell their phone. And kaya for example, yung mga cellphone natin, may mga sticker yan sa likod that confirms that they pass through the government standards. And they can generate or establish industries as well. So this type of government intervention, they try to eliminate monopolies in oligopolies. So for example, they try small businesses by giving them funding, okay, incentives to enter certain industries. So for example, if you're a new car manufacturer, local car manufacturer, sabihin natin parang Ateneo Car Corporation, okay? And we're a local car brand. The government can give us incentives and funding to be able to grow and compete with bigger car brands like Toyota, Honda, BMW, and etc. So this is something the government can do. And we've seen them doing this when they would support local businesses, local products, agriculture, so that they can be more competitive with other firms. And of course, assistance. So they can provide financial aid for struggling markets. And regulations can be made to empower local businesses rather than restrict them. So an example of this in Korea is that the Korean government provided financial aids to struggling small businesses amidst the COVID-19 pandemic so that these businesses would not close due to the pandemic that we are facing. So again, if government intervention is done right, it's actually very beneficial for a lot of businesses, especially for young entrepreneurs, local businesses, and even us who want to start our own online business, okay, maybe a small store. These government interventions, if done correctly, can actually help us bring the best products and to have a business that can grow in the local environment. But again, it still falters to the reason why a lot of businessmen don't like government intervention. Going back, it's because of a lot of things that restrict them from doing their best. And um, they also believe that the government is naturally susceptible to corruption depending on who's there. So whether to decide whether the government intervention is beneficial or not really depends on who the people running the government are. Okay. So if it's done right, we benefit from it. But if it's done wrong, it actually hinders business development.